Light Talk. Lumen Brothers. Light Talk. Light Talk. Light Talk. Lumen Brothers. Light Talk.
Good morning. This is Stan in Gainesville, Florida, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Hi, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas, and today we're going to talk about everything from rookie mistakes to the responsibility of a designer on Light Talk.
And this is David, back from Firenze, Italy. Ooh, 10 pounds heavier and ready to go in beautiful Long Beach, California. Hey, you know, I'm in Long Beach. I got to lose some weight now. You know, so I can look like all these surfers around here.
Good luck with that.
And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk.
Pasta Fellah. We'll call you Pasta Fellah.
Oh, Pasta Fellah.
Pasta Surfer.
I'm the Pasta Surfer. Okay, anyway, I don't know. You guys are listening to Light Talk. We're the Lumen Brothers. You know everything. Before we get started, guys, I want to congratulate you on that episode you did last week with Ann. I really don't think I'm needed here.
David, stop with the low self-esteem. We love you.
All I can tell you is that for the first time in Light Talk history, you had 50 minutes of intelligent conversation.
See, we were missing the human quotient with you.
Oh, my God. But anyway, we thank Ann for filling in for me. I thank Ann, and it was just too crazy. I mean, normally I could have done a remote, but it was...
You were busy being a beautiful artist. Look at those images you put up. Those were fabulous.
Well, to give credit where credit to due, most of that work is Driscoll's work, which I do want to talk about because I had...
Yeah, but you were in the room with him.
I was in the room. I did the lighting. Driscoll did the projections and the video. And what's so amazing, what you can't see from those images is the movement, because he timed it out perfectly to the music. And we all know that Wagner has some extremely dynamic music. And all of this, I mean, basically it was these sections of The Flying Dutchman where these ghosts come back from the ship, and it's really powerful music. And the whole beginning is they're in a big tempest. It could be the beginning of the Tempest for all we know. And he had this amazing video composition of these waves, and we had like 2 or 3 layers of scrims that we projected on. And I was just lighting the stage, and supporting the projection. So there were some ideas that were just lighting, obviously, but really what you see in those images is really Driscoll's work, who, by the way, is an amazing lighting designer and projection designer. It was really interesting working with him because I got to work with somebody who I've wanted to work with for a long time, because Paul works with Driscoll now about the same amount of time that he works with me. So I just heard nothing but great things about this guy. And I met him at Steve's portfolio review last year. He was hanging, and we met in person, and then we did the show together, and we ended up being the best of friends. I mean, we hung out together. The guy's really interesting. He loves the show, by the way. He thinks it's great.
Oh, cool.
And he's also agreed to do an interview, because right now Driscoll's like one of the hottest lighting projection designers out there, and he's that new generation or mid-generation of lighting designers. We're the old guys, by the way.
Right. Can I ask a technical question?
Sure.
Since you mentioned Driscoll's timing? I'm curious about the software. What was he using? Was he using Watchout or some other thing, or RKI?
Yeah, okay. I don't want to put words in Driscoll's mouth, but yes, we were using Watchout. Okay. But he puts everything together, with like most video designers do, not necessarily on Watchout. That's more of a
playback.
Yeah, playback. And it does it on timeline. It's very clunky. He uses QLab a lot. And for everything we did in this show, he could have easily ran the show on QLab. But we used to Watchout. And part of the problem was necessarily, it wasn't his problem, but it was the people who were running it. And that's a whole nother mishigash, because in Italy, there are some traditions that are totally insane. And it turns theater into chaos. For instance, do you guys know how many stage managers it takes to run a show there?
Change a light bulb?
Oh, okay.
12.
I am not kidding
One
you.
to do it and 11 to protest.
Not the protest, the debate about it, because that's everything in Italy is debate. No, here it is. We actually have 5 people calling cues on this show.
Oh, my God.
We have someone calling lights, who's the Maestro de Luci, right? We have someone calling all the deck moves. We have someone calling all the fly moves. We have someone calling projections and sound together, believe it or not. And then we have a traditional stage magic, dealing with the actors, the singers, dancers, and things like that. So all 5 of these people have to sync up. And let me tell you, there's no comm system in this theater.
Oh, my goodness.
There's no, you guys didn't see any headsets, did you? Right? They use walkie-talkies. I am not kidding you. They use walkie-talkies. So can you imagine syncing all this up? They all do it by score on the music, but still there are some things that really have to hit at the exact correct moment. So yeah, it was quite challenging. So anyway, that type of tradition drives me crazy. In the last show I did in Napoli, they would not take a cue unless the previous cue has ended. And even though I work with pylon cues all the time, they would not do it because it's a tradition of the theater. So this is the sort of thing that ups my Xanax quotient when I do a show. So anyway, listen, enough of that. We're going to talk a little bit about the Clay Paky Axcor 900 during the Let's Talk About segment. And all I can tell you is that I love Italy. The food was off the charts, as usual. And the light of Florence was amazing. I mean, I could not believe the photographs I took. And finally, the company was fantastic. Paul Curran directed it. Saverio Santoliquido did the set design. I did the lights. Costume designer was Gabriella Ingram. And projection, obviously, by Driscoll Otto. So, hey, let's get on to our first question.
Okay, we have Remy in France, and he writes, what was the biggest rookie mistake you made when you were starting out? And I actually had 3, and I'll be brief about this. I think the first one is to underestimate the time needed to develop and install your design. I think when you're just starting out, you're probably working at a small theater, and that theater is probably an amateur theater. So you go into that and you're reliant upon perhaps a technical director who's running everything, who may or may not understand what the needs are to get a show into a space. They understand the needs of the theater, and so they set aside X amount of time and say, well, you can get it done in this amount of time, without really understanding what it takes to develop a design and to install it and make it look right. They simply know that Monday is load-in day and Tuesday's tech day. So I think that. The second thing is underestimating the amount of equipment you need to pull off a design. And I trace this back to undergraduate training. You're in college, you're usually working in a small theater, perhaps a black box. And again, it's probably the technical director at your college who's making all these decisions about what is needed and what's not needed. So, I remember in college, our black box theater had about 25, 30 lights. And that was it. And that was considered a big hang. So when you start learning to use that amount of equipment, you don't necessarily realize that you needed 5 lights instead of 4. So I think when you move into the commercial theater, you err on the side of too small rather than get the job done correctly. And finally, I would say poor communication skills. And that is communicating with the technical director, the production manager, the stage manager, the director, not really understanding how a production meeting runs, not really understanding how a post-tech production meeting runs, not understanding that you need to speak up and say, look, I need dark time tomorrow. I can do it in the morning or afternoon, but I've got to have 4 hours. Just kind of sitting there like a bump on a log, waiting for someone to make these decisions for you. So that's my list of rookie mistakes.
I have just 2. And they're sort of, and I can see Steve's points really well. Mine are more on the aesthetic side, so I'll be very revealing here about my lack of, or my innocence in the early days. An overabundance of reliance on downlight. Downlight. Way too much downlight in my designs. Okay, so I certainly move away from that. And the other one was a lack of understanding of the power of contrast, which certainly I know now, like putting a red psyche behind somebody in a red dress. I mean, that's really wrong, so not understanding contrast well and over-relying on downlight were my two biggest aesthetic rookie mistakes.
Well, I agree with you about the downlight. Everyone uses downlight, and it's like, really, what good is this?
It lights the tip of your nose and the hair. I mean, maybe gets the floor.
Exactly. It allows you to paint the floor. That's the only reason why I use downlight nowadays. Because backlight makes sense, but downlight, no.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm going to get a little more specific because I was a rookie in 1980 when I was the assistant for the Miami Opera. And I had never assisted before, and Gilbert Hemsley took me under his wing and taught me in that first show how to do it. And I learned the biggest mistake I made on that particular show, which was a show called Nabucco, which was a show bigger than God, by the way. I think it had like 600 conventional fixtures. Gilbert focused most of them from the floor. And most everything had frost in it, but that I'm not even going to go back. Anyway, but I had to move that show to the Miami Beach Center of the Performing Arts, and I only had 6 hours to move it. I had to focus it. They were putting the cues in the board while I was focusing, and then you have basically about an hour and a half to look at the cues. And we brought up the first cue, and I'm sick. Oh, by the way, I was sick. I was sick as a dog. There's nothing worse than doing a show when you're sick. And I'm at the tech table. We bring up the first cue, and it looks horrible. I mean, absolutely horrible, horrible. And I'm fighting. I'm pulling lights out. I'm pulling channels in and out. I'm looking, what is wrong? What is wrong? And Gilbert sat behind me really quietly. And finally, I was about ready to kill myself. Gilbert tapped me on the shoulder, and he pointed to the balcony rail, and all the curtain warmers are up. So, so my lesson was
that'll kill it.
Don't take anything for granted, And when you hit a problem, stay calm and don't just start throwing out channels. Look around. I can't tell you how many times this week I ran up to the stage while I was lighting the scene.
Sure.
I would run up to the stage, and while the board operator said, well, let me try this. And I said, no. It's going to be a lot easier for me to go up there and isolate exactly. And usually when you go up on stage, you may be looking for a stray light or something like that, but you find something else. I cannot tell you how many times this happens. You usually find, hey, how about that light from this angle?
There's a solution.
There's a solution, but maybe it's a solution for something else. It's really really eye-opening. So get your butt out of the table and onto the stage or walk around the theater. You'd be amazed on what you can find. You really would be. And the second mistake was on my second show with Ken Billington, where he was lighting the show so fast, and I was taking track sheets, that I asked him, I turned to him, I said, please slow down. Well, that was my second mistake, and I'll never make that mistake again. Insane. So Anna in Tennessee wants to know, what do you see as the role of theater, and what is your responsibility as a designer/artist? Well, Anna, I go back to Robert Edmund Jones, one of the greatest books ever written in theater. I suggest everybody read this. It's a short book, and it's written from a director-artist point of view. It's called The Dramatic Imagination. And what Robert Edmund Jones basically says in this book, one of the many things he says, is that we are here to support the powers of the actor. We're telling stories. We're storytellers. I know you hear, we're storytellers. But this is so true as a designer, is that we create atmospheres so that the actors can really tell the story. It's that simple.
Can I just drill down on that? I totally agree with Jones and stories and actors. But even beyond that, while that being true, I wrote down this thing, that plays make statements. The playwright through the actors and through the designers and through is talking to us. So we should be clear what the playwright wants to say, right? And then we should make sure that message gets across. And of course, the actors are the vehicle for that playwright to speak through. And the other one I would just add is, this is a pet peeve of mine, is respect the audience. Please don't do anything that's self-indulgent. They came, they paid for tickets, they're giving you time, they're giving their attention. Respect them. And sometimes I think we think the audience is stupid. They're not. They're really smarter than we think. So those would be my 2 points.
Well, I think John Gassner, the great theater historian, said it best. We come to theater to share notes on life. Mm-hmm. I recently did a play called Killy and Do, Killy and Do is a one-act play. The curtain goes up on a fairly dark stage, and we begin to see a basement apartment. And we see someone lying in bed. That person gets out of bed, turns a light on, and we realize that person is both pregnant and chained. Wow. One leg is chained to the bed.
Wow.
And she has mobility about the room, but she's definitely a prisoner. And that is Killy. A few minutes later, Do comes in. And Do is a emergency room nurse who has kidnapped Killy. And over the course of 90 minutes, we hear a pro-life and a pro-choice argument.
Interesting.
And at the end of the play, there is no resolution. The lights simply black out. And so I think the next thing that theater does is it reinforces middle-class values. And I don't mean middle-class values in a bad way. We come to the theater with a value system, and we want to feel that we have a value in our thoughts. So at the end of Killy and Do, the audience leaves the theater. I don't think anyone's changed their value system, but their value system has been reinforced. And so I think finally what that means is, as a designer, I come to the theater to contribute in community discussion, to not censor, to not put anything on it, but to bring that event to the community and let them hash it out in the lobby or at home or on the drive home.
Yeah. I've always felt that theater is a political force. You know, when I was talking about Jones, that's basically our job as designers, I believe. But also, it is to tell that story. All this stuff is really important. That's why we do theater.
Well, I think we've forgotten. We look at American mythic musicals, and we take a look at something like Rogers and Hammerstein in Oklahoma. And Rogers and Hammerstein, I think, would be surprised that Oklahoma has any substance still today. I was reading a biography by one of them, and they said that they thought that their work had a life expectancy of about 8 to 12 years.
Interesting.
And after that, the relevance of their work would be lost. And then that writer, I forget whether it was Rogers or Hammerstein, went on to say, Oklahoma is about America's contribution to the Second World War. Farmers and cowboys should be friends. Let's put this together, pacifist and people who want to intervene. We got to get together and do something to contribute to what's happening in the world. South Pacific, a story of interracial marriage. If you look beyond the surface of their plays, they were writing interesting things for their times.
Yeah, it's funny. Driscoll and I were just talking about this 2 nights ago. I mean, I just loved the time I spent with him because we talk theater, we talk lighting, obviously, everything else. But he told me about this new production of Oklahoma that's going to Broadway, where at the wedding party, Judd hands Curly a gift, and Curly opens it up, and it's a pistol. And he pulls the pistol out, and he shoots Judd.
I think that's going to be sets all plywood. It's going to be it was an interesting production before we made the move, so it's going to continue to be interesting.
I guess the point being is that it is about current social events, and even untouched, even if you didn't have the gun in the gift, it's still a powerful, powerful piece. Carousel, all that stuff. These are great shows.
It's interesting you bring Carousel up because Carousel, interesting musical. Carousel is written at a time when Dad didn't come back from the war.
Right.
And Uncle Bob didn't come back, and your brother didn't come back. And so Carousel is about what it is to be a strong woman, and I can live just fine without a man in my life.
Yeah. Boy, it's great how this question has morphed into this discussion.
Well, the next question sort of ties into this one too. It's sort of an interesting motif today because Mary in Berlin wants to know if you were lighting theater, dance, or music, what does each thing need? Is what she's asking. And I wasn't really thinking design-wise when I wrote my answers to this question. I was thinking along the same lines that you guys that we're talking about, just dramaturgically. And I thought in theater, now this is sort of the anti-Brecht response. I want it to have emotion. I want the performers to emote. I want to feel something when I go to the theater. And that doesn't mean I don't want to think about something too and be intellectually stimulated or politically stimulated, or have that debate that Steve was talking about pro-life or abortion, and that's. But I want it to have emotion. That's what makes it compelling for me. That's what makes me not want to leave, or I'm just not reading I'm not watching a documentary, right? I'm watching theater, so I want it to have emotion. In dance, I don't know. This is just my own experience. I want it to be accessible to the audience. I don't want it to be so eclectic and so abstract that I I'm yawning and I don't know why I'm there. So I want to be able to kind of read something that makes it beautiful and makes it compelling for me. And music, you guys talk about Oklahoma and Carousel and these great musicals. I want it to be memorable. I don't mind walking out whistling the melody. Right? I want the music to stick in my brain. I want it to embed itself in my brain. So for me, if I'm lighting any of those things, it becomes a much more enjoyable and enriching experience when those pieces are present.
Well, Mary, I would say the one thing each needs, theater needs face, so you can see that emotion. Dance needs side, and music needs back. So
True.
So for me, those are the one things I have to have.
Yep. Can't argue with that one. Good answer, Steve.
Again, it's kind of general, but I wrote down sensitivity and side light. So I just, that's just for me. I love side light, But if it was like a box,
Sure.
It was a cube, and you can't get any side light in, you figure something else to do. I don't know.
Well, guess what?
What?
You are listening to Light Talk with Stan, Steve, and David. And we are, you know who we are. We're the Lumen Brothers. And this week, Light Talk is sponsored by
Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. The holidays are finally over. Sadly, your favorite stagehand clothes might have shrunken a bit, if you know what I mean. My friend, you are fat and Boo knows it. But what to do? Well, all new for 2019, Better Than Nothing Industries, the leader in stagehand gadgets, introduces a new walking app for stagehands, designers, and programmers. Which way did he go? The mobile app that plans your route and tracks your mileage. Just go to your local mall, activate the GPS, and Which Way Did He Go will lay out an exercise route for you and get the most out of your limited time. Just hit the Start Walk button, and Which Way Did He Go will locate you and lay out the shortest route to Orange Julius for a refreshing beverage.
Love it.
Once finished there, push the Continue Walk button, and your next route will take you to Cinnabon. That's right, the mobile app will locate all the tasty treats in the mall and get you there as fast as possible. Activate the Call Ahead feature, use Apple Pay, and they'll hand you your treat as you walk by. Feel the burn, my friend. Which Way Did He Go? Also works in 72 countries worldwide. Now you can plot the shortest route to a pizzeria, atop a bar, or your favorite falafel joint. Which Way Did He Go? By Better Than Nothing Industries. Just because you're working out doesn't mean you have to be a hungry savage.
When I was a child, I loved Orange Julius's. And I always wanted to know what that white powder was they put in it.
Sugar.
No, it was some sort of like milk, powdered milk, or
Cocaine.
it was cocaine.
Cocaine.
Now this
Cocaine.
was. I was like 12 years old. I loved Orange Julius's were fantastic, and I once drank 3 of them and went on to Zipper. You know what the Zipper was?
It's like a ride, right?
It's a carnival
Yes.
ride. And my friend and I each drank 3 Orange Julius's and went on to Zipper.
They were gone. I bet they were gone.
It was fantastic. I wish somebody had filmed it.
Oh, well, and now back to Light Talk.
And Orange Julius's. The ducks, they didn't die. I thought if I hadn't fed them in like 3 weeks,
I love ducks.
No,
I ate them all.
No, you hear them. They're in the background. You know what that says?
I ate them.
It says that it's time for a Let's Talk About segment.
Hang on a second. I want to call Bumpkus on this.
Bumpkus!
And I'm calling Bumpkus on Stan.
What?
You said you love ducks.
I
and
do.
you love to eat the ducks.
I do.
Are you butch enough to go to a Chinese restaurant, walk in the back, and pick your duck out?
Absolutely. Just take me there, baby.
Stan.
You would go back there and pick out a duck. You would say, I want the third one on the left.
I would, with only one eye open.
One eye open.
Because I don't want to see all the trash laying around
Oh,
there. But,
okay. Well, wait. First of all, you are dissing Chinese restaurants. Okay? I love Chinese restaurants.
I love China.
And I will tell you that any good restaurant will have trash in their kitchen. All right? No matter if
That's
it's
true.
Chinese or Italian or whatever.
So I would not only would I go in the back door, I would order my Peking Duck 24 hours in advance, sit outside and wait for the hot water to seep into the carcass of the duck, to tenderize that meat, to eat it with the most beautiful plum sauce ever created. Love duck.
Do you cook your own lobsters?
Not lately.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a little screaming lobster in the
okay.
bucket of hot water? No.
Oh, man.
I've done that. You know, they scream when you do that.
Please. Okay.
They do. They go,
What was that, Stan? Was that your lobster?
that was the screaming lobster.
Okay.
I love when Steve sets me up for these. It's great.
That's the name of the show, Screaming Lobsters.
Screaming Lobsters. There we go.
Anyway, those damn ducks that Stan likes to eat. That means it's time for our Let's Talk About segment. And today, I was going to do a review of the Clay Paky Axcor 900 because I just used them on a show, and
what do you think? I haven't seen them.
I was going to tell you what I thought, and I.
No, tell us now, damn it.
What did you think?
All right. So the Clay Paky Axcor 900, I was talked into using by the lighting, the house lighting designer at the Maggio Musicale in Florence, and they looked like very powerful lights. I saw a production they had before our production of West Side Story. I went to see it, and this is a good thing, by the way. People who never worked in a theater or looking at equipment and want to know more about the angles, go see a show there if you can, because you learn a lot about what you could do with your show. But anyway, I looked at the specs. I tried one out. I was not that impressed. When you're looking at what else is out there right now, the high-end solar spot fixtures, the new Verilight 2600, there's a lot of really good fixtures out there right now. So I'm a huge Clay Paky fan. I mean, I just love their equipment. I've used it for years. After the Alita BIs, this is the first LED fixture I used of theirs. And I must tell you something, I was not impressed. They're powerful. Yes, they're powerful. They've got a decent zoom range, 7 degrees to 40 degrees. Their CRI was greater than 70. We've heard these specs before. 24,000 lumens. But anyway, what didn't I like about it? I didn't like that it only went to 40 degrees, like, for instance, the Mac 3s, which I also had on this show, which, by the way, I love and always loved. They go up to 55 degrees, and that's great when you're using them as shin kickers or you're using them, in box booms. So, yeah, that was the first thing. The second thing, and this is my pet peeve, and I know my brothers share this, and that is, when is someone going to make a decent frost filter? When? I don't get it. Guys.
Inside a moving light.
I don't get it. Yes, inside a moving light, a variable frost module that you can take it to a good blend. They all like, it's frost, it's 132. Well, you know what? Moving light, sometimes you need more than 132. You need double 119.
Or less.
Or less. You're right. Some lights, and I know high-end has this issue with their solar spots. They have a hard edge, and then all of a sudden you see frost around that hard edge. No, that's not how you frost the light. You frost light, that hard edge starts frosting out.
So let me jump in here. So if they can make a gradient-based CMY, which they do with glass, it starts off less saturated, and as it moves it becomes more saturated. That's a process to make that gradient. Why can't they make a gradient-based piece of glass with frost?
Once again, Driscoll and I were talking about this because I've always believed that the best frost filter I've ever seen on a moving light was the old Verilight VO 1100 frost. And that was a flag. That was a flag.
Was it one flag or two that came across the
I
light?
don't remember, but all I know is that I never had an issue frosting those lights. It's a real problem, and I just don't get it.
What if they made a internal control point where the frost and the focus worked together? Because oftentimes you'll use the frost and the focus independently to get the edge you want. And what if they just made a channel, a combined channel that did both?
Well, you know what I ended up doing, and I did my old 3500 trick. I throw a damn breakup gobo in there, and then fuzz it way out, so you don't, so you can at least blend it. But you lose light intensity when you do that.
Right.
Steve, do you have the answer to this?
No, I don't. But what I hear is that there is an amazing frost that's about to hit the market. So, and I would also take a long, hard look, and I haven't, at the 2600 and see how they diffuse their lights. And see if that's a better one. I've been looking simply at the gobo wheel and the animation on it, which is kind of fantastic. And I haven't really bothered looking at the frost yet, but I'll do that this week.
I think the VLZ, if I remember, Steve, I can't remember. We had them last year. And I thought I didn't get enough time with them, but I thought the Z was doing a nice job with the frost.
I think the Sola 2000 frame from high end has a better frost than the VLZ. I think it's slightly better. I did a shootout side by side with them, and I thought they just edged VL out on their frost on. Again, the 2000.
The 2000, yeah. My Solar Theater frost does not work well.
Yeah.
It's what David described.
Yep.
It's a hard edge, and then I drop the frost, and it's like there's the hard edge is still there with the frosty thing around it. Then eventually it sort of frosts out.
I think it's in the wrong place.
That's what Steve has said before. It's in the wrong location.
I think the optics on a light are really difficult, and there's only so much room inside that light. I mean, it's amazing that companies can do what they do.
True.
So, there's a lot of things that have to be in the exact same place for it to work.
Well, there's also a big problem. I heard on the show last week, Ann was talking about the solar
frame.
Yeah, that they have color creep. Well, you know something? That is a big problem.
Well, I think manufacturers have 4 or 5 price points they're trying to hit, and you pay. If you're going to get the top of the line, whatever that is, you pay that $9,000 to $12,000 price,
right?
And then when you start dropping into that $3,500 to $5,000 price, you have to give some features up.
Yeah,
and you're using your lights for a different purpose. I mean, maybe if you're just flashing them around the disco, then you can get away with something that you can't get away with down at the Repertory Theater in town.
We haven't seen that on our solar theaters. And I know that when I went to the factory, they showed me how they do color quality control and the boxes of glass that they throw away and the way they bake the glass to make the dichroics. But they did explain to me that on the different fixtures, some of them, the leading edge of the glass has a curve in it. So when it comes across the field, it's coming in from the sides, but that leading edge curve, your eye can't discern that. It evens out the whole field. Whereas if the glass has got a hard edge coming across, then your eye has a harder time. And on some of those fixtures, the better fixtures, they have the leading edge curve on the glass, and in the less expensive fixtures, they don't. And that has to do with how they mix.
Yeah. I would love to hear from Bobby or someone from the manufacturers about this, because I want to hear about the color mixing systems and the problems that we start seeing, and certainly I want to hear from them about their thoughts about frost, because it is not there, and it's not just me. I'm not the only one. I mean, you guys feel this way. Designers feel this way. We need a good frost.
Well, Bobby's coming on the show, right?
Yeah, so we should ask him about it. One thing also I want to say about the 900. The native LED is poor, and forget about mixing anything. I tried mixing some magenta in there. Obviously, I tried using the color correction filter. There was nothing you could do.
Maybe it's more as a rock and roll light than a theater opera light.
Maybe, I don't know.
It's a good backlight or something.
Yeah. Again, they all have this greater than 70 CRI, but I know that the high end fixtures have much better color rendering. And a lot of it's not about skin tones. A lot of it's about the color on the costumes as well. And that's what I was dealing with on the show.
Well, not every light made is going to be a home run. You spend a couple years developing a light, and you're kind of committed. And you go to market with it, and then you realize it didn't quite do what you wanted to do, but you're still stuck with it while you're in development on its replacement.
Yeah, and you're stuck with it if you bought them.
What about ducks? Do you like ducks?
Yummy, 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 yummy.
I had the most fantastic boar and beef when I was in Florence. I'm telling you guys, the food. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, we have a question from Mark in Oregon. He sent this in a couple weeks ago. We're finally able to work it in. And he writes, can ballads in shades of blue be avoided? He's doing a concert, and he says, half of my show are ballads. Yeah, you don't have to turn blue on to have a ballad.
There's no rule.
It's like, here comes the blue light. It's either a ballad, it's nighttime, or it's scene change light. Yeah.
That's right.
Get rid of blue. Do anything you want to do. Be
anti-blue.
I'm telling you, you got a point. Half your show is ballads. They can't all be blue. They can't all be dark and gloomy and romantic. Do an orange ballad, do a red ballad, but do a side-lit ballad, do a footlight ballad.
Bring in the mirror ball, do something.
There we go. That's what I was thinking. I like so many blues to choose from. Pick some. Change your intensity.
Lavender.
Layer your blues. Choose the angle of your blues. Work the intensities. You have more blue receptors in your eye than any other. There's more low frequency receptors than greens and reds. Have fun. I mean, look at the gel book. There's so many blues, and there's so many different ways of combining blues. And when you change the intensity of blues, that changes all kinds of things. Yeah. There's so many other variables besides just the nanometer that you choose that you can work within.
But I totally reject blue. I'm saying if you've got a 45-minute concert and half your show is going to be blue, don't go there. Try something else. Be that guy that reinvents how a ballad is lit.
There you go.
Lead, don't follow.
Strobe lights. That's what I say for ballads.
Put some gray up there.
Gray. Chocolate. I want a chocolate ballad, damn it. By the way, I heard that chocolate was Anne's favorite color.
That's what she says. She has a chocolate ensemble, a chocolate overcoat, a chocolate wig.
She has milky, and then she has dark.
Ooh, give me the dark. Hey, that Hammond organ solo in the background tells us that once again, you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk fun.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast.
Apparently, one of my brothers has located a new law firm, so in case you decide to litigate, our very discreet law firm of Cobb, Driver, and Array will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and the Lone Star State.
And be sure to tune in next week when we discuss concert lighting tips. What is your greatest daily challenge that gets in the way of creating excellent lighting? Could you recommend a good lighting project? And what would you say are the principles of a good design?
All of that and a new sponsor, Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
So long, everyone.